Hello, BookTube. I have a friend who runs a church here in Boston, and he knew that I've been feeling under the weather, so he opened an invitation for me to go over and fill a box with books. Said, it's going to make you feel better, so feel free to do so. And I hemmed and hawed. I really wasn't feeling up to doing it. And today was nice and bright and sunny and warm. And he insisted, he reiterated his insistence and said, you don't need to worry about carrying, you just need to worry about getting yourself over here. You can take as much as you want, and you can take the car back. And I will have my young sacristan. I will relieve him of his duties long enough for him to lug the books to the car, drive the car back home, lug the books back into your house. You can work him like a drove horse, and I won't mind. You are not to exert yourself. It's just a pile of books will probably make you feel better. And I said, well, won't that be if I pick a lot of books, won't that be a lot of work for your sacristan? And he said, well, if he gets overheated, he can take his shirt off. And I said, yes, he certainly can. My friend said, will you knock that off? And I pointed out to him that my joking, lewd innuendos were perfectly okay to a certain young seminary student when he used to come over here for wine and calzones, and that shut him up. But in face of his invitation, I really couldn't say no. So I made my way over there, and I found a bunch of stuff, and I want to show you what I found today. Some surprises. I never know what I'm going to see when I open there are boxes and boxes now in one room off the basement down there, and then just he gets them, he cleans them up, and he shoves them back there. So I'm sure that I haven't seen them all, but I got a ton of stuff. Now I got a pile of books yesterday at the Brattle Bookshop in Boston, so I don't need any more books. That has never stopped me, and it's never stopped any of you either. So don't judge. But we have two mass market paperbacks. One is these old Bantam classics that I love. I love the look of them. I don't quite know why. Most of the time I love the look of them. They're little mass market paperbacks with white spines and the Bantam logo. This one has a brown spine, a tannish spine. This is Bleak House. With that kind of a setup. I don't really care that it's a little off-white. I'll gladly put it on the shelf there. And who knows, maybe it will be these Bantams that I will do my next Dickens reread. Then this is a Mentor classic, very much along the same lines, meant to look the same way. This is The Odd Women by George Gissing. His one truly great novel. I mean, there are, yes, baby, lots of people have that reaction to George Gissing. There are great parts to New Grub Street. And boy, oh boy, are there stinkers. This author, when he didn't care about what he was writing, or when more often he cared too much, oh boy, the stuff that he could write was just bad. Just really, really breathtakingly bad. This is his only truly great novel, and it's a set squarely in the heart of Victorian England, and it's about a group of women who come from very different backgrounds, want very different things from life, but are seeking to be independent. Which sounds very simple to us now in 21st century America, but there were no avenues to do that weren't humiliating or completely dependent on men. And the women in this book are trying various ways to not be dependent on men. And it's wonderful. It really is wonderful. It is the best parts of New Grub Street, only with no weak spots, with no episodic stuff at all. Just a totally inspired work. And I don't, as far as I know, have a print copy of this. Of course, I have e-copies of almost everything that I got here. Well, no, that's not true. But I have an e-copy of this, I'm sure. But I don't think I even have a Penguin Classic of The Odd Women. So happy to have it. This one has an accompanying essay by Elaine Showalter. It's no small thing there. Then we have Hard Case Crime. A lot of you know these paperbacks with the deliberately retro cover illustrations. I love the work that they do. Absolutely love it. I've been often tempted to just get a whole library of Hard Case classics. They're a uniform design, and they're very collectible. But I have too many books as it is. I know this is the wrong video for me to say that, but I have too many books as it is. But I found one that I absolutely could not resist. This is Forever and a Death by the great Donald Westlake. And this is, look at that cover illustration. That is just incredible. And this is posthumously published, I believe. He was approached. He was a crime writer, but a crime writer like no other. If you have not read Donald Westlake, you really should. You really should. He is amazingly good. My own favorite is The Axe, but I've never read a Donald Westlake that I didn't like, and I don't think I've ever read this one. Fairly hefty thing. I think the origin story of this is that Hollywood people approached Westlake as a natural candidate to write a James Bond novel, to write a James Bond movie. And it didn't work. This is the raw material of that. This is the finished product of that. But for one political reason or another, it didn't work to ever go into print decades ago when it was actually conceived. But the idea of reading it, and not just any Westlake, but a nice, big, thick Donald Westlake, is just a joy. Just an absolute joy. Any of you who like Don Winslow, for instance, or Dennis Lehane, they worship at the altar of this guy, and rightly so. So very happy to find it in perfect condition. Never know what I'm going to find here in this. I found a Penguin Classic. I usually nowadays am very wary about Penguin Classics out in the wild. I used to have a Penguin Classic wall, and when I was done touring it, I looked at it and realized how much duplication there was, and also how much stuff there was there only because it was a Penguin Classic. Not because I actually like it or want it or would ever read it, much less reread it. So I decreased the size of that wall enormously. Got rid of all it's now a bookcase instead of a wall. But I found a Penguin Classic today that I don't have, and I want it, of course. This is a Penguin Classic of Gulliver's Travels. There is Lemuel Gulliver in the land of the Brobdingnagians, who are gigantic. The Lilliputians steal all the thunder, but of course my favorite part of this book is neither the Brobdingnagians nor the Lilliputians nor any of the various hilarious peoples that Gulliver meets in the third part of this book. My favorite, of course, are the Winhams, the superior race of horses that he meets at the end. There's a lot of very bitter, acidic wisdom in the chapter on the Winhams. I ordinarily look at these things now in terms of do I really want the book, and also what kind of shape is it in. Penguin Class, you have to worry about them being highlighted. You have to worry about them being in crappy condition. This is not. This is in fairly good, strong condition, so I grabbed it. Then a couple of chick lit books. One with a cartoon cover. We will not be seeing these much longer. That doesn't make me bid them a fond farewell. I can't stand them. But this seemed really interesting. This is Ashley Poston, The Dead Romantics, with a dumb cartoon cover. This will all be AI generated by the end of this year, and then forever afterwards. This is about Florence Day is the ghostwriter for one of the most prolific romance authors in the industry, and she has a problem. After a terrible breakup, she no longer believes in love. It's as good as dead. When her new editor, a too handsome mountain of a man, won't give her an extension on her book deadline, Florence prepares to kiss her career goodbye. But then she gets a phone call she never wanted to receive and must return home for the first time in a decade to help her family bury her beloved father. So it sounds like it'll have a little bit of a bittersweet aspect to it. Fine by me. Same thing with this next one, but this author is well known to me, and I love her bittersweet aspects. This is Ellen Hildebrand, and this is her book Winter in Paradise, with a very typical Ellen Hildebrand cover. She is now an industry. Look at these covers. She is now an industry, and is known as one of the queens of beach reading. Her and Mary Kay Andrews and a couple of others are the queen of the book that you stuff into a big beach bag. I wonder if there's a beach bag on one of these covers. No, but they're all beach covers. She's a proud writer of Nantucket, an island off the coast of Massachusetts. And this book features another island as well. I don't think I remember reading this one. But she writes so regularly that I do. Her books are essentially unreviewable, so I read them for pleasure, but I do fall behind on them. This one is Irene shares her idyllic life with her two sons and a husband who adores her to skywriting sentimental extremes. But as she rings in the new year one cold and snowy night, everything she knew falls to pieces with a single phone call. Her beloved husband, away on business, has been killed in a plane crash. Before she can even process the news, she must confront the perplexing details of her husband's death on the distant Caribbean island of St. John, which is an island I know well. I spent a lot of time there. Not quite as much time as I have on another island in that chain, but still. So when Irene and her sons arrive in this faraway paradise, they make yet another shocking discovery. Her husband had been living a double life. As the Steeles slowly untangle his web of lies, they finally face the truth about their family and about their own futures. Can't wait. I know that this is an author. I know that I will like it, so I don't need to worry about it. Then we have a hardcover. This is a format buy. Not a buy, actually. I just selected it from the pile and put it in the box. I would have bought this. If I'd seen it at a bookstore for money, I would have bought it. These are the old Barnes & Noble hardcover classics that they did. Not the leather-bound ones that they do, but before that, Barnes & Noble had a long run of these things. They'd commission a new introduction, usually, sometimes new notes. They were really solid, lovely things with deckled edges. I should have got them all when they were coming to the shop. I thought mistakenly that they would be around forever. I saw one, in the basement today and grabbed it. This is Pride and Prejudice. I have Herodotus in this format. I have Vanity Fair in this format. And this is what I mean. They're sort of well done. I'm tempted. That is a very boring cover. I'm tempted to redo the cover, but maybe I can come to like it. That is the kind of room that a lot of our characters will walk around in. People who read Pride and Prejudice new readers to Pride and Prejudice will often note that after dinner, maybe, or before dinner, a character will invite another character to take a turn around the room. And they're looking at their own room and they're thinking, what on earth? That's kind of weird. But that's what explains it. That's what it meant. Take a tour around the room, look at the paintings, look at the fixtures, By the time you get to this side, you're looking out a window onto the lawn, that sort of thing, and you talk the whole time. And thanks to the acoustics of a lot of these old country house rooms, you can't be heard by anyone else in the room. But this is tell me what we're going to have here. Introduction and notes by Carol Howard. And that's just great. I love this series. Maybe I won't redo the cover. Maybe I'll just put it. So I have yet another copy of Pride and Prejudice, which I really do not need. But these things, once I got there and was picking them out, I wasn't going to do anything with them. They literally, that young guy put these in a pile here on the fainting couch. He not only brought them over here, put them in the car, brought them over here, brought them in here, but he put them on the fainting couch. So I had to do literally nothing at all. So I figured, why not? Then we have biography. This is Robert Browning, but not my Robert Browning. This is his biography of Julian the Apostate, the Emperor Julian. I haven't had this book in quite a long time. When did this come out originally? 1980s? 1976. I haven't had this in quite a long time. A long, long time ago, I did a research project on Julian the Apostate. I went into extreme detail on this subject. This was the last non-Christian emperor of the Roman Empire, a nephew of Constantine the Great, and the survivor of a bloodbath of all of his relatives. He had a relative who went on a killing spree in order to clear his own path to the throne and secure his place against usurpers. And it was probably just that Julian was a happy young boy that spared him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have existed, wouldn't have carved his tiny place in history. He was only emperor for a couple of years. But he wanted to get rid of Christianity, which by the time he was emperor was the ruling ideology of the empire, and he thought that it was a bad ideology, energy sapping. He wanted to replace it. It's often said that he wanted to replace it with the Roman pantheon of gods. That's only true on paper. In reality, he was a sun god worshiper. In reality, the practical reality of what Julian had in mind would have been swapping out one monotheism for another, or swapping out one God-led polytheism for another, which is essentially what Christianity is. I mean, there's no sense. I've never understood when Christians say that Christianity is a monotheism. I've never understood that. Christianity is teeming with gods, in the same way that the ancient Rome or ancient Greece were teeming with gods. It's only a question, as it was, for instance, with Akhenaten, the great pharaoh Akhenaten. It's only a question of who your main god is going to be. But Browning does a great job. This is just a terrific book. So very happy to find it. I don't think I have any Julian biographies anymore, so I'm glad to have this one. There's one other that I would really want. Then we have this thing here. It was free. It was going to be brought back here on its own. I didn't have to risk the shoulder bag. I didn't have to lug it in rapidly increasing heat. So I grabbed it. I grabbed a lot of stuff that I'm not sure I would have grabbed otherwise. This one would have been a gamble. It is a gamble, but I often like books like this. This is by Diane Davis, and it's called Eagle One, Raising a Bald Eagle. Raising Bald Eagles, a Wildlife Memoir. This is about rehabilitating bald eagles. See, so there they are. There they are in their cages. Finding them and rehabilitating them. I believe this author is Massachusetts based. And I don't think that she stops at, she doesn't stop at bald eagles. These things, books like this, I think this was independently done. Chandler House Press. These things usually aren't literarily anything to write home about, but they're usually fascinating. A glimpse into a kind of world, into a kind of passion that I would otherwise know very little about, except for the people who rescue dogs in Massachusetts. But bald eagles? No, not at all. So I'll be interested to see. Usually with volumes like this, the key to whether or not the author will maintain my interest is directly related to how much the author is willing to tell me about the animal in question. Not about, Billy Bob who found one under his truck someday, but about bald eagles' natural history and behavior and whatnot and personalities. We shall see. I would never have seen this otherwise, so I grabbed it. Then a bunch of hardcovers to finish things out here. We have something that I've never seen before. Can't wait to read this. No idea how it made its journey to the basement of that church. But this is by Richard Berleth, and it's called The Twilight Lords, an Irish Chronicle. The fierce, doomed struggle of the last great feudal lords of Ireland against the England of Elizabeth I. So this is Tudor history from the other side, from the side of the losers. This is the slow, steady, incremental, incredibly violent encroachment of Tudor and then Stuart England into Ireland. I know some of these stories, but I've never read this book. This is from probably the 1970s. 1978. Yeah, so can't wait. What a find to find this just sitting there in a box of Tom Clancy and whatnot. Then we did Tudor history from the losing side. Now we'll do it from the winning side. This is David Lode's biography of Henry VIII, which I think I reviewed it. Haven't seen it in years. And there it was, just sitting there. I just yesterday got a copy of King Henry VIII's biography of King Henry VIII's son. So if I'm on some sort of a Tudor finding spree, that's fine by me. Absolutely. I remember liking this book. This came out in the early 2000s. Is that right? 2011. And this says Amberley. Maybe this is UK. That is usually a UK thing. Usually American books will have a description and blurbs on the back instead of something like that. But I haven't read this in 10 years, so I will gladly give it another try. I'm always up for that. I might have missed a lot the first time. Then we have, this was in a little bit ratty shape, but I'll put one of those plastic library coverings over it. And this is something that I have had many, many times. I have read it many times. I consulted it when I was doing a writing project of my own. And every time I mention it on this channel, every time I find a copy, one of you immediately pipes up and says that you really want it. So again, I have charity-proofed myself here in this case by getting a copy that's in terrible shape. I wouldn't feel right sending this to anybody else. It's in bad enough shape, in other words, for it to be mine. I would keep it. I knew immediately when I saw it that I currently don't have a copy. I got one just last year. And the minute one of you saw it in a video, you requested it, and I sent it off to you. But this is Royston Lambert's book, Beloved and God, in hardcover. A little bit ratty, a little bit the worse for wear, but this is about the Emperor Hadrian and his beloved Antinous, a young man named Antinous, for whom he conceived a passionate erotic attachment, also a personal attachment, but deeply erotic as well. And he was emperor of the Roman world, so that meant a lot. That meant a dozen cities named Antinousville, basically, Antinopolis, that named statues everywhere. And not just the ones commissioned by Hadrian, but all the toadies and hangers-on at court knew that they should commission a statue of Antinous and make it visible in their garden or in their courtyard when the emperor comes to visit. So, as a result, we have a large visual record for this young man without knowing all that much about him. And Royce and Lambert does a great job of trying to figure out who he was and what the nature of his relationship with Hadrian was. And I wanted a copy of this anyway. I will fix this up to the best of my ability. It will be rather nice by the time I'm done with it. It will certainly be useful for the rest of my life. I wanted a copy anyway because it's kind of the final word on the subject and also a really good book on Hadrian. But I wanted it even more because Mike Cummins and Ann Novella have an ongoing, a year-long thing called Classics and Company, where they're reading some classics, some older work, some slightly newer work, some very new work, with a guest star throughout the course of the year. And one of the books that they're doing is Margaret Yourcenar's novel, The Memoirs of Hadrian, which is all about, I mean, a huge chunk of it is about Hadrian and Antinous. You will often see those two books together. You will often, for instance, in used bookstores, see this book filed in fiction next to The Memoirs of Hadrian, or The Memoirs of Hadrian filed in biography next to this book, when this is history and that is fiction. They go together so well that you'll often see them together anyway. And I haven't reread this in a couple of years, so I will lovingly restore it, and then it will be in my biography section, and that'll be that. And then finally, we'll finish up with this book, which is another find. It's really not all that surprising, given that I found it in Boston. I've had personal connections, not only with my benefactor in terms of books here, but also with a couple of the authors in this little haul. I'm pretty sure I haven't done a good job of hiding that, and that is definitely true in this final one. But we don't have to dwell on it. We'll concentrate on the books themselves. This is by Peter Davidson, and this is the Fading Smile. This is his book, his memoir about the Boston poetry world of Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath and Robert Lowell and himself. He was a vital part of that world. He's not remembered anymore, and they are. And there's no, like, you go to a used bookstore or your current retail bookstore, you're not going to find collected verse of Peter Davison. That's just not going to happen. But this is a warm and loving book full of wonderful portraits of not only these people, but the Boston of the time, of mid-century, and mid-20th century, I should say, since we're not that far off from mid-century again. This is not only a really good portrait of the Boston world there, but also a really good portrait of the Boston book world there. Because all these people knew every used bookstore. They had, 75 cents in credit here, $1.25 in credit there. They knew all the bookstores. They knew all the bookstore personnel, at least the really book savvy ones, the bookmen among them. It's a vanished world. It's entirely gone now, but it's wonderfully done here. I was so happy to find this book. I haven't seen a copy of this used in forever. When did you come out? It's going to feel like an eye blink of time. 1994. So I was very, very happy to find this. This is a strong contender for the first reread of this batch. I'm definitely going to dig into some of these things. But this probably first. So that was a kind of an unplanned and totally unnecessary book haul. We have The Fading Smile. We have Beloved in God, yet another copy of Beloved in God. We have Henry VIII by David Loades. Do any of you know this? He's a prolific writer. Do any of you like his work? We have The Twilight Lords by Richard Burley. How incredible to find that. Just fantastic. We have Eagle One, about the adventures of a bald eagle rescuer. We have The Emperor Julian by Robert Browning, but not my Robert Browning. We have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, in case any of you wags attempted to make the joke. She is not one of the authors that I've had a personal connection with. Thank you very much. We have Ellen Hildebrand, Winter in Paradise. And we have, who is this again? Ashley Poston, The Dead Romantics. We have Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels in a Penguin Classic. Very nice. Clean that up, put it on the Penguin Classic bookcase. We have Forever and a Death by Donald Westlake in this great hard case crime paperback. We have The Odd Women by George Gissing. And we have one of these old bantams of Bleak House by Charles Dickens. So there you go. That was a sort of an unexpected therapeutic book haul today. It was very much appreciated. It very much hit the mark. And I offered that shirtless young sacristan a tall, cool glass of water, in case you're thinking I'm some sort of monster. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.